when our literature teacher, Ms. Kendra, made us read Our Town for our literature class. And we thought it'd be really fun to put it on since it's a pretty simple show, there's not a lot of set, but as teenagers we have a lot going on, and so we decided that we could do a stage reading where we could have our scripts on stage so we wouldn't have to memorize anything. This is all student-led, student-produced, student-directed, student-acted in. Everything about this is with students. And we're very thankful for Woodland Presbyterian and Emmanuel Baptist Church for letting us crash in their space and rehearse and perform in it. And speaking of Emmanuel, they're very kind of letting us use their space for free for the performance. So if you'd like to help thank them, we have a donation basket and an Venmo code at the back where the programs were. And I just want to say how proud I am of every single person backstage. They are some of the most talented actors that I know. And as directing, I have gotten to experience what it's like to be a director, but I have more empathy now for directors. It's a lot of work and it's hard blocking a show and telling you what to, because I'm usually on the other side, I'm usually the actor. And everyone was so kind and helpful, and they had the best ideas and suggestions for the show, and they are the entire reason this is possible. So yeah, let's give them a hand. It is going to run about an hour and a half, an hour and 45. Yeah, okay. Welcome to Our Town.
This play is called Our Town. It was written by Thornton Wilder, directed by Annalee Gregg, and produced by Maida Clare. This town is called Grover's Corners, New Hampshire, just across the Massachusetts state line. Latitude 42 degrees, 40 minutes. Longitude 70 degrees, 37 minutes. The first act shows a day in our town. That day is May 7th, 1901. The time is just before dawn. The sky is beginning to show some streaks of light over in the east there, behind our mountain. The morning star always gets wonderful bright the minute before it has to go, doesn't it? Well, I better show you how our town lies. Up here, Main Street. Way back there is the railway station. Tracks go that way. Polish towns across the tracks, and some Canuck families. Over there, Congregational Church. Across the streets, the Presbyterian, Methodist, Unitarian. Baptist is down the hollow by the river. The Catholic Church, back behind the tracks. Here is Town Hall, post office combined, jail's in the basement. Brian once made a speech from these very steps here. Along here is a row of stores, hitching posts and horse blocks in front of them. First automobile's going to come along in about 5 years. Belonged to banker Cartwright, our richest citizen. He lived in a big house right on that hill. Here's the grocery store, and here's Mr. Morgan's drugstore. Most everybody in town manages to look into one of those two stores once a day. Public school is over yonder. High school still further over. 8:45 mornings, noontime, and 3 o'clock afternoons. The whole town can hear the yelling and screaming from the schoolyards. This is our doctor's house, Doc Gibbs. This is the back door. There's some scenery for those who think they have to have scenery. This is Mrs. Gibbs' garden. Corn, peas, beans, hollyhocks, heliotrope, and a lot of burdock. And don't forget, front door over there. In those days, our newspaper came out about twice a week, the Grover's Corner Sentinel. And this is Editor Webb's house. This is Mrs. Webb's garden, just like Mrs. Gibbs, only it has a lot of sunflowers too. Right here, big butternut tree, of course, front door. It's a nice town, you know what I mean? Nobody very remarkable ever come out of it, as far as we know. The earliest tombstones in the cemetery up there on the mountain say 1670, 1680. They're Grovers and Cartwrights and Gibbses and Herseys. Same names as are around here now. Well, as I said, it's about dawn. The only lights on in town are in a cottage by the tracks where a Polish mother just had twins. And in the Joe Crowell house where Joe Jr. is getting up to deliver the papers. And in the depot where Shorty Hawkins is getting ready to flag the 5:45 for Boston. Naturally, out in the country, all around, the lights have been on for some time, with the milking and so on, but town people, we sleep a little late. So, another day's begun. There's Doc Gibbs coming down Main Street now, coming back from that baby case, and here's his wife coming downstairs to get breakfast. Doc Gibbs died in 1930. The new hospital's named after him, but Mrs. Gibbs died first, a long time ago, in fact. She went out to visit her daughter, Rebecca, who married an insurance man in Canton, Ohio, and died there, pneumonia. But her body was brought back here. She's up in the cemetery here now, and in the whole mess of Gibbses and Herseys, she was Julia Hersey before she married Doc Gibbs. The Congregational Church, right over there. In our town, we like to know the facts about everybody. Now there's Mrs. Webb coming downstairs to get her breakfast too. And that's Doc Gibbs. Got that call at 1:30 this morning. And there comes Joe Crowell Jr., delivering Mr. Webb's signal.
Morning, Doc Gibbs.
Morning, Joe.
Somebody been sick, Doc?
No, just some twins born over to Welchtown.
Do you want your paper now?
Yes, I'll take it. Anything serious going on in the world since Wednesday?
Yes, sir. My school teacher, Miss Foster's getting married to a fellow over in Concord.
I declare. How do you boys feel about that?
Well, of course it's none of my business, but I think if a person starts out to be a teacher, she ought to stay one.
How's your knee, Joe?
Fine, Doc. I never think about it at all. Only like you said, it always tells me when it's going to rain.
What's it telling you today? Going to rain?
No, sir.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
You never make a mistake.
No, sir.
I want to tell you something about that boy, Joe Crowell there. Joe was awful bright. Went to high school here, graduated top of his class, got a scholarship to Massachusetts Tech. Graduated head of his class there, too. It was all wrote up in the Boston paper at the time. Gonna be a great engineer, Joe Crowell was. But the war broke out and he died in France. All that education for nothing.
Jen, Betsy, what's the matter with you today?
Here comes Howie Newsom. We'll bring them out.
Morning, Doc.
Morning, Howie.
Don't be sick.
Here at twins born over to Miss Gillespie's.
Twins, eh? I swear this town's getting bigger every year.
Going to rain, Howie?
Never on a fine day, I'll burn right through. Come on, Betsy.
Hello, Bessie. How old is she, Howie?
Going on 17. Betsy's all mixed about the route. It's a lot hard to stop taking her for milk every day. She still wants me to leave him for the same. Keeps scolding me at that whole trip.
Good morning, Howie.
Morning, Miss Gibbs. Doctor's coming down the street.
Is he? Seems like you're late today.
Something went wrong with the separator. I don't know what it was.
Howie.
Children, time to get up! George, Rebecca! Everything all right, friend?
Yes, I declare. These is kids.
Baby will be ready in a minute. Sit down and drink your coffee. You can catch a couple hours of sleep this morning, can't you?
This Wegworth's coming at 11, because I know it's about to. Just don't get one about to.
All told, you won't get more than 3 hours of sleep. Frank Gibbs, I don't know what's going to become of you. I do wish I could get you to go away someplace and take a rest. I think it would do you good.
Emily, time to get up. Wally, 7 o'clock.
And I declare you've got to speak to George. Seems like something's come over him lately. He's no help to me at all. I can't even get him to cut me some wood.
Is he sassy to you?
No, he just whines. All he cares about is that baseball. George! Rebecca! You'll be late for school! George!
George, look sharp! Yes, Grandma. Don't you hear your mother calling you? Guess I'll go upstairs before you reach.
Wally, Emily, you'll be late for school. Wally, watch yourself good or I'll come up and do it myself.
Mom, what trash now I wear? Don't make a noise. Your father's been out all night and needs his sleep. I washed it and ironed the blue gingham for you special.
Mom, I hate that dress.
Oh, hush up with you.
Every day I go to school dressed like a sick turkey.
Now remember, you always look very nice.
Mama, you were just doing so good me.
I'll come up there and slap the both of you. That's what I'll do.
We've got a factory in our town too. Hear it? Makes blankets. Cartwrights own it and it brought him a fortune.
Children, now I won't have it. Breakfast is just as good as any other meal, and I won't have you gobbling it down like wolves. It'll stunt your growth, and that's a fact.
Oh, Mom, by 10 o'clock, I want to know all about Canada.
You know the rules well as I do. No books at the table. As for me, I'd rather have my children healthy than bright.
I'm both, Mama. You know I am. I'm the brightest girl in school for my age. I have a wonderful memory. Eat breakfast.
I'm right too, when I'm looking at my stamp collection.
I'll speak to your father about it when he's rested. Seems to me 25 cents is enough. A week's enough for a boy your age. I declare I do not know how you spend it all.
Come on, I got plenty of things to buy.
Strawberry phosphates. That's what you spend it on.
I don't see how Rebecca comes out so much money. She has more than $1.
I've been saving it up gradual.
Well, dear, I think it's a good thing to spend some every now and then.
Mama, do you know what I love most in the world, do you? Money.
Eat your breakfast.
Oh, come on, let's go.
Oh, walk fast so you don't have to run. While you hold your pants at the knees, stand up straight, Emily.
Tell Mrs. Foster I sent her my best congratulations. Can you remember that?
Yes, Mom.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Here, chick, chick, chick. Go away, you. Go away. Here, chick, chick, chick. Oh, what is the matter with you? Fight, fight, fight. That's all you do. Oh, hello. You don't belong to me. Where did you come from? Oh, now don't be scared. No one's gonna hurt you. Good morning, Myrtle. How's your cold?
Well, I still get that tickling feeling in my throat. I told Charles I didn't know as I'd go to choir practice tonight. It wouldn't be any use.
Have you tried singing over your voice?
Yes, but somehow I can't do that and stay on the key. While I'm resting myself, I thought I'd string some of these themes.
Well, let me know.
I've decided to put up 40 quarts if it kills me. The children say they hate them, but I just stay with them down all winter.
Now, Myrtle, I've got to tell you something because if I don't tell somebody, I'll burst.
Why Julie Gibbs?
Here, give me some more of those, please. Myrtle, did one of those secondhand furniture men from Boston come to see you last Friday?
No.
Well, he called on me. First, I thought he was a patient wanting to see Dr. Gibbs, and he wormed his way into my parlor, and Myrtle Webb, he offered me $350 for Grandmother Wentworth's hypoid as I was sitting here.
Why Julia Gibbs?
He did! That whole thing! Why, it was so big I didn't know where to put it, and I almost gave it away to cousin Hester Wilcox.
Well, you're going to take it, aren't you?
I don't know.
You don't know. $350. What's come over you?
Well, if I could get the doctor to take the money and go away someplace on a real trip, I'd sell it like that. You know, Myrtle, it's been the dream of my life to see Paris, France. Oh, I don't know, it sounds crazy, I suppose, but for years I've been promising myself that if we were to ever have the chance.
How does the doctor feel about it?
Well, I did beat around the bush a little and said that if I got a legacy, that's the way I put it, I'd make him take me someplace.
What did he say?
You know how it is. I haven't heard a serious word out of him since I've known him. No, he said it might make him disconnected with Grover's Corners to go traipsing around Europe. Better that well enough alone, he says. Every 2 years he makes a trip to the battlefields of the Civil War, and that's enough treat for anybody, he says.
Well, Mr. Webb just admires the way Dr. Gibbs knows everything about the Civil War. Mr. Webb's a good mind to give up Napoleon and move over to the Civil War. Only Dr. Gibbs, being one of the greatest experts in the country, just makes him
It's a fact. Dr. Gibbs is never so happy as when he's at Antietam or Gettysburg. The times I've walked over those hills, Myrtle, stopping at every bush and pacing it all out like we were gonna buy it.
Well, if that second-hand man's really serious about buying it, Julia, you'll sell it. And you'll get to see Paris, all right. Just keep dropping hints from time to time. That's how I got to see the Atlantic Ocean, you know.
Oh, I'm sorry I mentioned it. Only it seems to me that once in your life before you die, you ought to see a country where they don't talk in English and don't even want to.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. Now, we're going to skip a few hours, but first, we want a little more info about this town. Kind of a scientific account, we could say. So, I've asked Professor Willard of our state university to sketch in a few details of our past history here. Is the professor here? May I introduce Professor Willard of our state university? Brief notes, thank you, Professor. Unfortunately, our time is rather limited.
Grover's Corners, let me see. Grover's Corners lies on the old Pleistocene granite of the Appalachian Range. I may say it's some of the oldest land in the world. We're very proud of that. A shelf of Devonian basalt crosses it with vestiges of Mesozoic shale and some sandstone outcroppings. But that's all. More recent, 200, 300 million years old. Some highly interesting fossils have been found. I may say unique fossils. 2 miles out of town in Silas Peckham's cow pasture. They can be seen at the museum in our university at any time. This is at any reasonable time. Shall I read some of Professor Gruber's notes on the meteorological situation, mean precipitation, etc.?
We don't have time for that, Professor, thank you. But we might have a few words on the history of man here.
Yes, anthropological data. early Amerindian stock, Cotahatchee tribes. No evidence before the 10th century of this era. Now entirely disappeared. Possible traces in the century of English brachiocephalic blue-eyed stock. For the most part, since then, since Slav and Mediterranean.
And the population, Professor.
Within the town's limits, 2,640.
Just a moment, Professor.
Oh yes, indeed. The population at the moment is 2,642. The postal district brings in 507 more, making a total of 3,149. Mortality and birth rates constant by Macpherson's Gauge 6.032.
Thank you very much, Professor. We're all very much obliged to you, I'm sure.
Not at all, sir, not at all.
This way, Professor, and thank you again. Now, the political and social report. Editor Webb. Mr. Webb.
He'll be here in a minute. He just cut his hand while he was eating an apple.
Thank you, Mrs. Webb.
Charles, everybody's waiting.
Mr. Webb is publisher and editor of the Grover's Corner Sentinel. That is our local paper, you know.
Well, I don't have to tell you that we're run here by a board of selectmen. All males vote at age 21, women vote indirect. We're lower middle class, sprinkling of professional men, 10% illiterate laborers. Politically, we're 86% Republicans, 6% Democrats, 4% Socialists, rest indifferent. Religiously, we're 85% Protestant, 12% Catholic, rest indifferent.
How many comments, Mr. Webb?
Well, it's a very ordinary town if you ask me. A little better behaved than most, probably a lot duller. But our young people here seem to like it well enough. 90% of them graduated from high school, settled down right here to live, even when they've been away to college.
Huh. Well, now, is there anyone in the audience who would like to ask Editor Webb anything about the town?
Is there much drinking in Grover's Corner?
Well, ma'am, I wouldn't know what you'd call much. Saturday nights, the farmhands meet down at Ellery Greenock's stable and holler some. We've got one or two town drunks, but they're always having remorses when an evangelist comes to town. No, ma'am, I'd say liquor ain't a regular thing in the home here, except for the medicine chest. Right good for snake bites. You know, always was.
Is there no one in town aware of?
Oh, come forward where we can hear you. What were you saying?
Is there no one in town aware of social injustice and industrial inequality?
Oh yes, everybody is. Some terrible. Seems they spend most of their time talking about who's rich and who's poor.
Then why don't they do something about it?
Well, I don't know. I guess we're all hunting like everybody else for a way the diligent and sensible can rise to the top and the lazy and quarrelsome can sink to the bottom. But it ain't easy to find. Meanwhile, we do all we can to help those that can't help themselves, and those that can, we leave alone. Are there any other questions?
Mr. Webb, is there any culture of love and beauty in Grover's Corner?
Well, ma'am, there ain't much. Nonsense, you mean. Come to think of it, some girls that play the piano at the high school commencement, but they ain't happy about it. No, ma'am, there isn't much culture. But maybe this is the place to tell you. We've got plenty of pleasures of a kind here. We like the sun coming up over the mountains in the morning. We all notice a great deal about the birds. We pay a lot of attention to them. And we like to watch the changes of the seasons. But about those other things, you're right, ma'am. There ain't much.
So I thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Now we'll go back to the town. It's early afternoon. All 2,642 had their dinners and all the dishes have been washed. There's an early afternoon calm to our town. Buzzing and a humming from the school buildings, only a few buggies on Main Street, the horses dozing at the hitching posts. You all remember what that's like. Doc Gibbs in his office, tapping people and making them say, ah. Mr. Webb's cutting his lawn over there. 1 man in 10 thinks it's a privilege to push his own lawnmower. And oh, sir, it's later than I thought. There's the children coming home from school already.
I can't, Lois. I'll have to go home and help my mother. I promise.
Emily, what, Emily? Who do you think you are today?
Papa, you're terrible. One minute you tell me to stand up straight, and the next minute you call me names. I just don't listen to you.
Golly, I've never gotten a kiss from such a great lady before.
Oh, excuse me, Miss Doris.
Well, I'm playing the field, young man. You got no business playing baseball on
on the Louisiana Purchase instead. I worked an awful long time on both of them.
Gee, it's funny, Emily. From my window up there, I can just see your head nights when you're doing your homework over in your room.
Why can you?
You certainly do stick to it.
Well, I always feel like it's something you have to go through.
Yeah.
I don't mind it, really. It passes the time.
Yeah. Emily, what do you think? We could work out a kind of telegraph from your window to mine, and you could give me a hint or two on one of those algebra problems. Not the answers, of course, but a hint.
I think hints are allowed, so if you get stuck, George, you whistle to me and I'll give you some hints.
Emily, you're just naturally great.
I suppose it's just the way a person's born.
Yeah, but see, I want to be a farmer, and my Uncle Luke says whenever I'm ready, I can come over and work on his farm, and if I'm good, I can just gradually add
You
it.
mean the house and everything?
Yeah, well, thanks. I better be getting to the baseball field. Thanks for talking, Emily. Good afternoon, Miss Webb.
Good afternoon, George.
So long, Emily.
So long, George.
Emily, come inside and help me bring these teams growing. George Gibbs let himself have a real conversation, didn't he, while he was growing up? How old was George?
I don't know.
Let's see, he must be 16.
Mom, I made a speech in class today and I was very good.
You must recite it to your father at supper. What was it about?
The Louisiana Purchase. It was like silk off a spool. I'm gonna make speeches all my life. Mom, are these big enough?
Try and make them a little bigger if you can.
Mom, will you answer a question for me, serious?
Seriously, dear, not serious.
Seriously, will you?
Of course I will.
Mom, am I good looking?
Yes, of course you are. All my children have got good features. I'd be ashamed if they hadn't.
Mom, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, am I pretty?
I've already told you yes. Now that's enough of that. You have a nice, pretty young face. I've never heard of such foolishness.
Oh, Mama, you never tell us the truth about anything.
I am telling you the truth.
Mama, were you pretty?
Yes, I was, if I do say. I was the prettiest girl in town, next to Cartwright.
Mom, you've got to say something about me. Am I pretty enough to get anyone to get people interested in me?
Emily, you make me tired. Now stop it. You're pretty enough for all normal purposes. Come along now.
Thank you. That'll do it. We'll have to interrupt you once more. Thank you, Mrs. Webb. Thank you, Emily. There are some more things we want to explore about this town. Well, I think this is a good time to tell you that the Cartwright interests have just begun building a new bank in Grover's Corners. Had to go to Vermont for the marble, I'm sorry to say, but they've asked a friend of mine what they should put in the cornerstone to dig up, 1,000 years from now. Of course, they put a copy of the New York Times and a copy of Mr. Webb's Sentinel. We're kind of interested in this because some scientific fellows have found a way of painting all that reading matter with a glue, a silicate glue, that'll make it keep 1,000 to 2,000 years. And we're putting in the Bible, and the Constitution of the United States, and a copy of William Shakespeare's plays. But, what do you think, folks? What do you think, folks? What do you feel about that? Babylon once had 2 million people in it. And all we know about it is the names of the kings and some copies of wheat contracts, and contracts for the sale of slaves. Yet, every night, all those families sat down to supper, and the father came home from his work, and the smoke went up in the chimney, same as here, and even in Greece and in Rome. And all we know about the real life of the people is what we can piece together out of their joking poems and the comedies they wrote. So, I'm going to have a copy of this play put in the cornerstone, and so people 1,000 years from now will know a few simple facts about us. More than the Treaty of Versailles and the Lindenberg Flight. See what I mean? So people 1,000 years from now, this is the way we were in provinces north of New York at the beginning of the 20th century. This is the way we were in our growing up, and our marrying, and our living, and in our dying. Well, a good deal of time's gone by now. It's evening. You can hear choir practice going on in the Congregational Church. The children are at home doing their schoolwork. The day's running down like a tired clock.
Now, look here, everyone. Music come in the world to give pleasure softer, softer. Get it out of your heads that music only good means loud. You leave loudness to the Methodists. You couldn't beat them even if you tried. Tenors?
Emily.
Hello.
Hello.
I can't work at all. The moonlight's so terrible.
Emily, did you get the third problem?
Which?
The third.
Why, yes, George, that's the easiest of them yards.
In yards? How do you mean?
In square yards.
Oh, square yards.
Yes, George, don't you see?
Yeah?
In square yards of wallpaper.
Wallpaper. Oh, I see. Thanks a lot, Emily.
You're welcome. Mine is the green light terrible, and choir practice going on. I think if you hold your breath, you can hear the train all the way to Com's Cook. You hear it?
What do you know?
Well, I guess I better go back and try to work.
Good night, Emily, and thanks.
Good night, George.
Now, before I forget it, how many of you would be able to come and sing at Tuesday afternoon at Fred Hosey's wedding? Show your hands up. That'll be fine. That'll be nice. We did the same music we did for Jane Travers last month. Now, we'll do Art Valkyrie out the way. It's a question, ladies and gentlemen. Make it talk. Ready?
George, can you come down a minute? Make yourself comfortable, George. It'll only take a minute. George, how old are you now?
I'm 16, almost 17.
What do you want to do if this was over?
I want to be a farmer and a little farm.
You'll be willing, will you? To get up early and milk and feed the stock. You'll be able to go and hay all day.
Sure I will. What do you mean, Pop?
Well, George, while I was in my office today, I heard a funny sound. What do you think that was? It was your mother, chopping wood. There, you see your mother, getting up early, cooking meals all day long, washing and ironing, and still, she has to go out in the backyard and chop wood. I suppose she just got tired of asking me. She just gave up and decided it was easier to do it herself. And you eat her meals, and put on the clothes she keeps nice to you, and you run off and play baseball, like she's some hired girl we keep around the house, but we don't like very much. Well, I knew all I had to do was call your attention to it. Here's a handkerchief. George, I decided to raise your spending money 25 cents a week. Not, of course, for chopping wood for your mother, because that's a present to give her, but because you're getting older, and I imagine there are things that you must find to do with it.
Thanks, Mom.
Let's see. Tomorrow's your payday. You can count on it. Probably Rebecca, although she ought to have some more anyway. Wonder what could have happened to your mother. Choir practice was never as late as this before.
It's only 8:30, Pop.
I don't know why she's in that old choir. She has any more voice than an old crow. Tracing around the streets at this hour of the night. It's about time to retire, don't you think?
Yes, Mom.
Good night, Martha. Good night, Mr. Foster. I'll tell Mr. Webb I know the one put it in the paper.
My, it's late.
Good night, Irma.
Real nice choir practice, wasn't it? Myrtle Webb, look at that moon, will you? Potato weather for sure.
Now, girls. Naturally, I didn't want to say a word about it in front of those others, but now that we're alone, really, it's the worst scandal that was ever in this town.
What?
Simon Stimson!
Now, Lupelma.
But Julia, to have the organs of the church drink and drunk year after year, you know he was drunk tonight!
No, Lupella. We all know about Mr. Stimson, and we all know about the troubles he's been through. And Dr. Ferguson knows too. And if Dr. Ferguson keeps him on there in his job, the only thing the rest of us can do is just not to notice it.
Not to notice it, but it's getting worse!
No, it isn't, Luella. It's getting better. I've been in that choir twice as long as you have. It doesn't happen anywhere near so often. I hate to go to bed on a night like this. I better hurry. Those children will be staying up till all hours. Good night, Luella.
Good night. Can you get home safe, Luella?
It's as bright as day. I can see Mr. Soames scowling out the window. You think we've been to a dance the way the men folk carry on?
Good night. Well, we had a real good time.
You're late enough.
Why, Frank, it any later than usual.
And you stopping at the corner to gossip with that lot of hens?
Now, Frank, don't be grouchy. Come on, smell the helium truck. Isn't that wonderful? What did you do all the time I was away?
Oh, I read as usual. What were you girls gossiping about tonight?
Believe me, Frank, there's a lot to gossip about.
Simon Stimson gone far, was he?
Worse than I've ever seen him. How will that end, Frank? Dr. Ferguson can't forgive him forever.
I guess I know more about Simon Stimson's affairs than anybody in this town. Some people ain't made for small town life. I don't know how that'll end, but there's nothing we can do but just leave it alone. Come, get in.
No, not yet. Frank, I'm worried about you.
What are you worried about?
I think it's my duty to make plans for you to get a real rest and change. And if I get that legacy, well, I'm gonna insist on it.
Now, Julia, there's no sense in going over that again.
Frank, you're just unreasonable.
Come on, Julia, it's getting late. First thing you know, you'll catch cold. I gave George a piece of my mind tonight. I
your own window.
I did, but there's no moon there. George, do you know what I think, do you? I think maybe the moon's getting nearer and there would be a big explosion.
Rebecca, you don't know anything. If the moon was getting nearer, the guys would sit up all night with their telescopes, would see it first, and they'd tell about it. And it would be all in the newspapers.
George, is the moon shining on South America, Canada, and half the whole world?
Well, probably is.
Thank you. 9:30. Most of the lights are out. But no, there's Constable Ward trying a few doors on Main Street. And here comes Editor Webb after putting his paper to bed.
Well, good evening, Bill.
Evening, Mr. Webb.
Quite a move.
Yep.
All quiet tonight?
Simon Stimson is rolling around a little. Just saw his wife moving out to hunt for him, so I looked the other way. Oh, there he is now.
Oh, good evening, Simon. The town seems to have settled down for the night pretty well. Good evening. Yep, most of the town settled down for the night, Simon. I guess we better do the same. Can I walk along a ways with you? Good night.
I don't know how that's gonna end, Mr. Webb.
Well, you seem a peck of trouble, one thing after another. Oh, Bill, if you see my boy smoking cigarettes, just give him a word, will you? He thinks a lot of you, Bill.
I don't think he smokes no cigarettes, Mr. Webb. Least weighs not more than 2 or 3 a year.
I hope not. Well, good night, though.
Good night, Mr. Webb.
Who's that? Is that you, Myrtle?
No, it's me, Papa.
Oh, why aren't you in bed?
I don't know, I just can't sleep yet. Papa, the moonlight's so wonderful. The smell of Mrs. Gibbs' heliotrope. Can you smell it?
Yes. Having any troubles on your mind, have you?
Troubles, Papa, no.
Well, enjoy yourself, but don't let your mother catch you. Good night, everyone.
Good night, Papa.
I never told about the letter Jane Crawford got from the minister when she was sick. He wrote Jane a letter, and on the envelope, he addressed it like this. It said, Jane Crawford, the Crawford Farm, Grover's Corner, Sutton County, New Hampshire, United States of America.
What's funny about that?
Well, listen, it's not finished. United States of America, continent of North America, Western Hemisphere, the Earth, the solar system, the universe, the mind of God. That's what it said. And the postman Robert was the same.
What do you know?
That's the end of the first act, friends. Years have gone by. Yes, the sun's come up over 1,000 times. Summers and winters have cracked the mountains a little bit, and rains have brought down some of their dirt. Some babies that weren't even born before have begun talking regular sentences already. And a number of people who thought they were right young and spry have noticed they can't pound up a flight of stairs like they used to without their hearts fluttering a little. All that can happen in 1,000 days. Nature's been pushing and contriving in other ways too. A number of young people fell in love, got married. Yeah, the mountain got a bit away, a few fractions of an inch. Millions of gallons of water went by the mill, and here and there a new home was set up under a new roof. Almost everybody in the world gets married, you know what I mean? In our town, there aren't hardly any exceptions. Most everybody in the world climbs into their graves married. The first act was called The Daily Life. This act is called Love and Marriage. There's another act coming after this, but I reckon you can guess what that's about. So, it's 3 years later. It's 1904, July 7th, just after high school commencement. That's the time most of our young people jump up and get married. As soon as they pass their last examinations in solid geometry and Cicero's orations, looks like they suddenly feel themselves fit to be married. It's early morning. Only this time it's been raining. It's been pouring and thundering. Mrs. Gibbs' garden and Mrs. Webb's drenched. All those bean poles and pea vines drenched. All yesterday over there on Main Street, the rain looked like curtains being blown along. It may begin again any minute. You can hear the 5:45 for Boston. And there's Mrs. Gibbs and Mrs. Webb come down to make breakfast, just as though it were an ordinary day. I don't have to point out to the women in my audience that those ladies they see before them, both of those ladies cooked 3 meals a day, one of them for 20 years, the other for 40, and no summer vacation. They brought up 2 children apiece, washed, cleaned the house, and never a nervous breakdown. It's like one of those Middle West poets said, you gotta love life to have life, and you gotta have life to love life. It's what they call a vicious cycle. Here comes Cy Crowell delivering the papers like his brother before him, and Howie Newsom delivering the mail.
Morning, Howie.
Morning, Todd. Anything in the papers I know?
Nothing much, except for this about the best baseball pitcher Grover's Corners ever had, George Gibbs.
Reckon he is.
He could hit and run bases too.
Yep, mighty fine ball player. Whoa, Bessie. I guess I can stop and talk if I want to.
I don't see how we could give up a thing just like that just to get married. Would you, Howie?
Can't tell the side, never had any friend like that. You're Burley Bill.
Seeing if there's anything I can do to prevent a flood.
River's been rising all night.
Cy Crowell is all worked up about George Gibbs retiring from baseball.
Yes, sir, that's the way it goes. Back in '84, we had a player, even George Gibbs couldn't touch him. Name of Hank Todd. Went down to the committee and became a Carson. Wonderful ball player. Howie, how does the weather look to you?
Ain't bad. Think it may be clear for good.
Well, you know I'm getting older. I need some new eyes to look at that river.
Good morning, Howie.
Morning,
Is it
Steve.
gonna rain again?
I think it may be clear for good.
Certainly hope it will.
How is she on today?
I'm gonna have a house full of relations, Howie. Looks like I'll need 3 milk into a cream.
My wife just to tell you we both hope you'll be very happy. This Gibbs, go do it.
Thanks a lot, Howie. Tell your wife I hope she gets there to the wedding.
Oh, we'll be there. We'll be there if she can.
Oh, good morning, Mr. Newsom. I told you 4 quarts of milk, but I hope you can spare me another.
Yes, ma'am. And 2 cream.
Will it start raining again, Mr. Newsom?
Well, I was just saying to Miss Gibbs that I think it might clear up for good.
Thank you, and thank Mrs. Newsom. We're counting on seeing you at the wedding.
Yep. We couldn't miss that for the world.
Well, the day has come. She's losing one of your chicks.
Frank Gibbs, don't you say another word. I feel like crying every minute. Sit down and drink your coffee.
The groom's up shaving himself, only there ain't a awful lot to shave. Whistling and singing like he's glad to leave us. Every now and then he says I do to the mirror, but it doesn't sound very convincing to me.
I declare, Frank, I don't know how we'll get along. I've arranged his clothes and see to it he's put warm things on. Frank, they're too young. Emily won't think of such things. He'll catch his death of cold within a week.
I was remembering my wedding morning, Julia.
No, don't start that, Frank Gibbs.
I was the scaredest young fellow in the state of New Hampshire. I thought I'd make a mistake for sure. And when I saw you coming down that aisle, I thought you were the prettiest girl I've ever seen. The only trouble was that I'd never seen you before. There I was in the congregational church marrying a total stranger.
And how do you think I felt? Frank, weddings are perfectly awful things. Farces, that's what they are. Here, let me do something.
Why, Julia Kersey, French toast.
They hard to make and I had to do something.
How'd you sleep last night, Julia?
Well, I heard a lot of the hours struck off.
Yes. I get a shock every time I think of George setting out to be man again. That great game we think. I tell you, Julia, there's something so terrifying in the role as a son. The relation of a father and his son is the darnest, awkwardest.
Well, mother and daughter's no picnic, let me tell you.
They'll have their own troubles, I suppose, but that's none of our business. Everyone has a right to their own troubles.
Yes. People are meant to go through life 2 by 2. Ain't that so long?
Julia, do you know one of the things I was scared of when I married you?
Oh, hush up with you.
I was afraid that we wouldn't have enough material for conversation more than last a few weeks. I was afraid we'd run out and eat our meals in silence. That's a fact. Well, you and I have been conversing for 20 years now without any of those embarrassed spells.
Well, good weather, bad weather. Differing choice, but I always find something. Did you hear Rebecca stirring around upstairs?
No. Only the idea Rebecca hasn't been managing everyone's business up there. She's hiding in her room. I've got the impression she's crying.
Lord's sakes, this has got to stop. Rebecca! Rebecca, come and get your breakfast!
Good morning, everybody. Only 5 more hours to live.
George Gibbs, where are you going?
Set up dress, my girl.
No, George! You put on your overshoes. It's raining torrents. You don't go out of the house without you're prepared for it.
Come on, it's just a step.
George, you'll catch your death of cold and cough all throughout the service.
George, do as your mother tells you.
From tomorrow on, you can kill yourself in all weathers, but if you live in my house, you live wisely, thank you. Maybe Mrs. Webb isn't used to callers at 7 in the morning. Here, take a cup
superstition, George.
Millions of followers, George. You don't want to be the first to fly in the face of custom.
How's Emily?
She hasn't waked up yet. I haven't heard a sound out of her.
Emily's asleep?
No wonder we're up till all hours sewing and packing. Now I'll tell you what you do. You sit down here a minute with Mr. Webb, drink this cup of coffee, and I'll go upstairs and see if she doesn't surprise you. Just make it on the stove, but don't be too long about it.
Well, George, how are you?
I'm fine. Mr. Webb, what sense could there be in a superstition like that?
Well, you see, on her wedding morning, a girl's head apt to be full of clothes or one thing or another. Don't you think that's probably it?
I never thought of that.
A girl's apt to be mighty nervous on her wedding day.
I just wish a fellow could get married without all that marching up and down.
Every man that's ever lived has felt that way about it, George. But it hasn't been any use. It's the women folk who have built up weddings, my boy. For a while now, women have it all their own. A man looks pretty small at a wedding, George. All those good women standing shoulder to shoulder, making sure they're not tied in a mighty public way.
But you believe it, right, Mr. Webb?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Don't you misunderstand me, my boy. Marriage is a wonderful thing. A wonderful thing. And don't you forget that, George.
No, sir. Mr. Webb, how old were you when you got married?
Well, you see, I've been away to college and taken some time to get settled, but Mrs. Webb, she wasn't much older than Emily is now. Oh, age doesn't have much to do with it, George, not compared with, other things.
What were you going to say, Mr. Webb?
Oh, I don't know. Was I going to say something? George, I was thinking the other night of some advice my father gave me when I got married. Charles, he said, Charles, start out early by showing who's boss. He said the best thing to do is give an order, even if it doesn't make sense, just so he'll learn to obey. And he said, if anything about your wife irritates you, her conversations, or anything, just get up and leave the house. That'll make it clear who's boss. And he said, oh yes, he said, never, never let your wife know how much money you have. Never.
Mr. Webb, I don't think I could.
So I took the opposite of my father's advice, and I've been happy ever since. And let this be a lesson to you, George, never to ask advice on personal matters. George, are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
What?
Are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
Well, Uncle Luke's never been much interested, but I thought...
A book came by my office the other day, George, on the philo system of raising chickens. I want you to read it. And I'm thinking of beginning in a small way in the backyard. We're going to put an incubator in the cellar.
Charles, are you talking about an incubator again? I thought you could be talking about things worthwhile.
Well, Myrtle, if you want to give the boys some good advice, I'll go upstairs and leave you alone with them.
And George, Emily's got to come downstairs and eat her breakfast. She sends you her love, but she doesn't want to lay eyes on you. Goodbye.
Myrtle, I guess you don't know about the older superstition.
What do you mean, Charles?
Since the cavemen, no bridegroom should see his father-in-law on the day of the wedding. Now remember that.
Thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Webb. Now, I have to interrupt here once more. You see, we want to know how all this began. This wedding, this plan to spend a lifetime together. I'm awfully interested in how grand things like that began. Well, you know how it is. You're 21 or 22, make some decisions, and you're 70. You've been a lawyer for 50 years, and that white-haired lady at your side has eaten over 50,000 meals with you. So how do such things begin? George and Emily are going to show you now the conversation they had when they first knew. Well, as the saying goes, they were meant for each other. But before they do, I want you to try and remember what it was like to have been very young. Specifically, when you were first in love, and you were like a person sleepwalking, and you didn't quite see the street you were in, and didn't quite hear everything that was said to you. You're just a little bit crazy. So could you remember that, please? Now, they'll be coming out of high school at 3 o'clock. George has just been elected president of the junior class. And as it's June, that means he'll be president of the senior class. And Emily's just been elected secretary and treasurer. I don't have to tell you how important that is.
I can't believe I'm about to go home. Goodbye. Oh, Ernestine, can you come over tonight and do Latin, since it's sort of the worst thing? Tell your mother you have to. Goodbye, Will, goodbye, Fred.
Can I carry your books home for you, Emily?
Why, thank you. Is it far?
Excuse me a minute, Emily. Say Bob if I'm a little late, start practice anyway. And give her some long high ones.
Goodbye, Lizzie.
Bye, Lizzie. changed? What do you mean?
Well, up to a year ago, I used to like you a lot. And I used to watch you as you did everything because we've been friends so long, but then you began spending all your time at baseball. And you never stopped to speak to anybody anymore, not even your own family you didn't. And George, it's a fact. You got awful conceited and stuck up, and all the girls say so. They may not say so to your face, but that's what they say about you behind your back. And it hurts me to hear them say it, but I've got to agree with them a little. I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings, but I can't be sorry I said it.
I'm glad you said it, Ethel. I never thought that such a thing was happening. I guess it's hard for a fella not to have faults creep into his character.
I always expect a man to be perfect, and I think he should be.
Oh, I don't think it's possibly perfect.
Well, my father is, and as far as I can tell, your father is.
Well, I think it's the other way around. That men aren't naturally good, girls are.
Well, you might as well know right now that I'm not perfect. It's not as easy for a girl to be perfect as a man, because we girls are more nervous. Now, I'm sorry I said all that about you. I don't know what made me say it.
Emily,
Now I can see it's not the truth at all, and I certainly feel that it is important anyway.
Emily, would you like an ice cream soda or something before you go home?
Oh, thank you, I would.
Hello, Stu. How are you?
Oh, hello, George. Hello, Emily. Emily, well, what have you been crying about?
She got an awful scare, Mr. Morgan. She almost got run over by that hardware store wagon. Everyone says Tom Huckins drives like a crazy man.
Oh, well now. Hey, you take a drink of water, Emily. You look all shook up. Well, I tell you, you gotta look both ways before you cross Main Street these days. It's worse every year. So, what do you want?
I'll have strawberry phosphate, please. Thank you,
No,
Mr. Morgan.
Emily, have an ice cream soda with me. 2 strawberry ice cream sodas, Mr. Morgan.
2 strawberry ice cream sodas. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know, there are 125 horses in Grover's Corner this minute. I'm talking to you now, and the state inspector was in here yesterday. And now, they're bringing in these automobiles. The best thing to do is just stay home. Why, I can remember when a dog would go to sleep in the middle of Main Street, and nothing would come along to disturb it. Well, anyway, here they are. Please enjoy them. Oh, yes, Miss Ellis, what can I do for you?
George, they're so expensive.
No, don't think about that. We're celebrating our election. And then you know what else I'm celebrating?
No.
I'm celebrating because I've got a friend who tells me all the things that ought to be told.
George, please don't think about it. I don't know why I said it. It's not true. You're very...
No, Emily, stick to it. I'm glad you spoke to me like you did. But you'll see, I'm gonna change so quick. Bet I'm gonna change. And Emily, I want to ask you a favor.
What?
Emily, if I go away to State Agriculture College next year, will you write me a letter every once in a while?
Of course I will. I certainly will, George. It certainly seems like being away for years, you'd get out of touch with things. Maybe letters from Grover's Corners wouldn't be so interesting after a while. Grover's Corners isn't a very important place when you think of all of New Hampshire, but I think it's a very nice town.
The day wouldn't come when I wouldn't want to know everything that's happening here. I know that's true, Emily.
Well, George, I'll try to make it interesting.
You know, Emily, whenever I meet a farmer, I ask him if he thinks it's important to go to agriculture school, be a good farmer. Yeah, and some of them say it's even a waste of time. You can get all that stuff out of pamphlets the government sends you, and Uncle Luke's getting old. He's about ready for me to take over his farm if I could.
Hi.
And like you say, being gone all that time, in other places and meeting other people, gosh, if anything like that can happen, I don't want to go away. I guess new people aren't much better than old ones, but they never are. Emily, I feel that you're as good as the friends I've got. I don't need to go meet other people in other places.
But George, maybe it's very important for you to go and learn about all that cattle judging and soil and things. Of course, I don't know.
Emily, I'm gonna make up my mind right now. I won't go. I'm telling Pa about it tonight.
Well, George, I don't see why you have to decide right now. It's a whole year away.
Emily, I'm glad you talked to me about the fault in my character. What you said was right. There was one thing wrong in me. That's when you said that for a year I wasn't noticing anyone. You, for instance. You say you were watching you and I did everything. I was doing the same for you all the time. Making sure where you were sitting on the bleachers and who you were with. For 3 days now, I've been trying to walk home with you, but something's always got in the way. I was waiting for you the other day, and you walked home with Miss Corcoran.
Oh, that's awful funny, George. How can I know that? I thought that...
Listen, Emily. Going to tell you I'm not going to agriculture school. I think that once you found a person that you're very fond of, someone who's fond of you too and likes you enough to be interested in your character, I think that's just as important as college. even more so. So
I think it's awful important too.
Emily,
Yes, George.
Emily, if I do improve and make a big change, would you be, could you be?
I am now, and I always have been.
So I guess this is an important topic then, Emily.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Wait just a minute and I'll walk you. Mr. Morgan, I'll have to go home and get the money. It'll only take me a minute.
George Gibbs, do you mean to tell me that you can't?
Yes, but I had reasons, Mr. Morgan. Look, here's my gold watch to keep until I get back.
That's all right. Keep your watch. I'll trust you.
Be back in 5 minutes.
I'll trust you 10 years, George. But hey, not a day over. Your shopping order?
Yes, Mr. Morgan, thank you. There's nothing.
Well, I think it's time for the wedding. There are a lot of things to be said about a wedding. I mean, there are a lot of thoughts that go on during a wedding. We can't get into all of them in just one, naturally, and especially not a wedding in Grover's Corners, where we're awfully plain and short. In this wedding, I play the minister. That gives me the right to say a few more things about it. For a while now, the play gets pretty serious. You see, some churches say that marriage is a sacrament. I don't quite know what that means, but I can guess. Like Mrs. Gibbs said a few minutes ago, people were made to live 2 by 2. This is a good wedding, but people are so put together that even at a good wedding, there's a lot of confusion way down deep in people's minds. And we thought that ought to be part of our play too. The real hero of this scene isn't on the stage at all. And you know who that is. It's like one of those European fellas said, every child born into the world is nature's attempt to make a perfect human being. Well, we've seen nature pushing and contriving for some time now. We all know that nature's interested in quantity, but I think she's interested in quality too. Well, that's why I'm in the ministry. And don't forget all the other witnesses at this wedding. The ancestors. Millions of them. Most of them set out to live 2 by 2 also, just millions of them. Well, that's all of my sermon. It wasn't very long anyways.
I don't know why on earth I should be crying. I suppose there's nothing to cry about. It came over me at breakfast this morning. There Emily was, eating her breakfast as she's done for the past 17 years, and now she's going off to eat it in someone else's house. I suppose that's it. And Emily, she suddenly said, I can't eat another mouthful, and she put her head down on the table and she cried. Oh, I've got to say, you know, there's something downright cruel about sending our girls out into marriage this way. I hope her girlfriends have told her a thing or two. I went into it blind as a bat myself, and I couldn't bring myself to say anything. The whole world's wrong. That's what's the matter. Here they come.
George,
You're getting so old. I'm Jordan. I'm getting married.
All right, that's enough, yeah. There used to be an awful lot of that kind of thing at weddings in the old days, at Rome and later. We're more civilized now, so they say.
George, what's the matter?
No, I don't want to grow old. Why is everybody pushing me so?
Why, George, you wanted it?
No, Ma, listen to me.
No, George, you're a man now.
Listen, Ma, for the last time I asked you, all I want to do is be a fellow.
George, if anyone should hear you. Now stop. Well, I'm ashamed of you.
What? Where's Emily?
George, you gave me such a turn.
Cheer up, Ma. I'm getting married.
Let me catch my breath a minute.
No, Ma, you saved Thursday nights. Emily and I are coming over every Thursday. You'll see. Ma, what are you crying for? Gotta get ready for this.
I never felt so alone in my whole life. And George over there looking so... I hate him! I wish I were dead. Papa!
Shh, Emily, now is not the time to get upset.
But Papa, I don't want to get married.
Shh, Emily, everything's all right.
Why can't I stay for a while just as I am? Let's go away.
No, Emily, now stop. Think a minute.
Don't you remember that you used to say, all the time that I was your girl? There must be lots of places we can go to. I'll work for you, and I can keep house.
Shh, you mustn't think such things. You're just nervous, Emily. George, will you come here a minute? Why, you're marrying the best young fellow in the world. George is a fine fellow. I'm giving away my daughter, George. Do you think you can take care of her?
Mr. Webb, I want to. I want to try. Emily, I'm gonna do my best. I love you, Emily. I need you.
Well, if you love me, help me. All I want is someone to love me.
I will, Emily. Emily, I'll try.
And I'll live forever. You hear, forever and ever.
Come, quick. They're waiting for us. Now you know what we are, right? Come quick.
Do you, George, take this woman, Emily, to be your wedded wife? To have her
Perfectly
status?
lovely wedding. Loveliest wedding I ever saw. Oh, I do love a good wedding. Doesn't she make a lovely bride?
You, Emily, take this man, George, to be your wedded husband.
Don't know when I've seen such a lovely wedding. But I always cry. Don't know why. I always cry. I just like to see young people happy, don't you? Oh, I just think it's so lovely.
You may now kiss the bride. I've married over 200 couples in my day. Do I believe in it? Well, I don't know. In Mary's Inn, there's just millions of them. The cottage, the go-kart, the Sunday afternoon drives in the Ford, the first rheumatism, the grandchildren, the second rheumatism, the deathbed, the reading of the will. Once in 1,000 times, it's interesting. Well, let's have Middleton's wedding march.
Aren't they a lovely couple? I've never been to such a nice wedding. I'm sure they'll be happy. I always say, happiness, that's a great thing.
That is the second act, folks. We have a quick change here, so please be patient. This time, 9 years have gone by, friends. Summer 1913. Gradual changes in Grover's Corners. Horses are getting rares. Farm is coming into town in Fords. Everybody locks their house doors now at night. Ain't been any burglars in town yet, but everybody's heard about them. You'd be surprised, though. On the whole, things don't change much around here. This is certainly an important part of Grover's Corners. It's on a hilltop, a windy hilltop. Lots of sky, lots of clouds, often lots of sun and moon and stars. You come up here on a fine afternoon, you can see range on range of hill. Awful blue they are, up there by Lake Sunapee and Lake Winnipesaukee. On the way up, if you got a glass, you can see the White Mountains and Mount Washington, where North Conway and Conway is. And of course, our favorite mountain, Mount Monadnock. It's right there. And all these towns that lay around it, Jaffrey and East Jaffrey, Peterborough and Dublin, and there, quite a way down, is Grover's Corners. Yeah, it's a beautiful spot up here. Mount Laurel and lilacs. I often wonder why people like to be buried in Woodlawn and Brooklyn, and they might pass the same time up here in New Hampshire. Over here are the old stones, 1670, 1680. Strong-minded people that come a long way to be independent. Summer people walk around there laughing at the funny words on the tombstones, but they don't do any harm. And genealogists come up from Boston, get paid by city people for looking up their ancestors. Over there are some Civil War veterans, iron flags on their graves, New Hampshire boys. Had a notion that the Union ought to be kept together, though they'd never seen more than 50 miles of it themselves. All they knew was the name, the United States of America. The United States of America. And they went and died about it. This here is the new part of the cemetery. And here's your friend Mrs. Gibbs. You can see Mr. Stinson, organist of the Congregational Church, and Mrs. Soames, who enjoyed the wedding, so you remember, and lots of others. and Editor Webb's boy, Wallace, whose appendix burst while he was on a Boy Scout trip to Crawford Notch. Yes, an awful lot of sorrow sort of quieted up down there. People just wild with grief have brought their relatives up to this hill. And we all know how it is. And time and sunny days and rainy days and snow. We're all glad they're in a beautiful place and that we're coming up here ourselves when it fits over. Now, there are some things we all know, but we don't take them out and look at them very often. We all know that something is eternal. And it ain't houses, and it ain't names, and it ain't earth, and it ain't even the stars. Everybody knows in their hearts that something is eternal. And that something has to do with human beings. All the greatest people ever lived have been telling us that for 5,000 years, and yet you'd be surprised how people are always losing hold of it. There's something way down deep that's eternal about every human being. You know as well as I do, the dead don't stay interested in us living people for very long. Gradually, and I do mean gradually, they lose hold of the earth, and the ambitions they had, and the pleasures they had, and the things they suffered, and the people they loved. They get winged away from the earth, that's how I put it. They get winged away. And they stay here, while the earth part of them burns away, burns out. And all the time they get slowly indifferent to what's going on in Grover's Corners. They're waiting. They're waiting for something that they feel is coming. Something important and something great. And aren't they waiting for that eternal part in them to come out clear? Some of the things they're about to say might hurt your feelings, but that's the way it is. Mother and daughter, husband and wife, enemy and enemy, money and miser, all those terribly important things kind of grow pale around here. And what's left when memory's gone and your identity, Mrs. Smith. Well, there are some living people. There's Joe Stoddard, our undertaker, supervising a new made grave. And here comes the Grover's Corner boy that left town to go out west.
Good afternoon, Joe Stoddard.
Good afternoon, good afternoon. Let me see now. Do I know you?
I'm Sam Craig.
Gracious sakes alive. Of all people? I should have known you'd be back for the funeral. You've been away a long time, Sam.
Yes, I've been away over 12 years. I'm in business out in Buffalo now, Joe. But I was in the East when I got news of my cousin's death. So I thought I'd combine things a little and come see the old home. You look well.
Yes, can't complain. Very sad our journey today, Samuel.
Yes.
Yes, I hate to say it. I hate to supervise when a young person is taken. They'll always be here in a few minutes now. I had to come here early today. My son's supervising at home.
Old Farmer McCarty. I used to do chores for him after school. He had the lumbago.
Yes, we brought Farmer McCarty here a number of years ago now.
Why, this is my Aunt Julia. I'd forgotten that she... Of course.
Yes. Doc Gibbs lost his wife 2-3 years ago, about this time, and today's another pretty bad blow for him too.
That's my sister Carrie's boy. Sam Kern. Mama's uncomfortable when they're around. Simon.
Do they choose their own verses much, Joe?
No, not usual. Most of the bigger verse.
Doesn't sound like my Aunt Julia. There aren't many of those first sisters left now. Let me see. Where are... I wanted to look at my father's and mother's.
Over there, with the cracks, Avenue F.
He was the organist at church, wasn't he? Drank a lot, he used to say.
Nobody was supposed to know about it. He'd seen a peck of trouble. Took his own life, you know.
Oh, did he?
Hung himself in the attic. They tried to hush it up, but of course it got around. He chose his own epitaph. You can see it here. It ain't a verse exactly.
Why, it's just some notes of music. What is it?
Oh, I wouldn't know. It was thrown up in the Boston papers at the time.
Joe, what did she die of?
Who?
My cousin.
Oh, didn't you know? Had some trouble bringing a baby into the world. 'Twas her second, though. There's a little boy out there, about 4 years old.
The grave's gonna be over there?
Yes. There ain't much more room over here among the Gibbses, so they're opening up a whole new Gibbs section over by Avenue B. You'll excuse me now. I see they're coming.
Child, I'd forgotten how awful life was. And wonderful.
Wonderful, is it?
Simon, now remember.
I remember Emily's wedding. Wasn't it a lovely wedding? And I remember her reading the class poem at graduation. Emily was one of the brightest girls ever to graduate from high school. I've heard Principal Wilkins say, time after time. I called on them at their farm just before I died. Perfectly beautiful.
It's on the same road we lived on.
Yeah, right, my song.
I always liked that hymn. I was hoping they'd sing a hymn.
Hello. Hello. Hello, Miss Gibbs.
Hello, Mother Gibbs.
Emily.
It's raining.
Yes. They'll be gone soon, dear. Just wait and be patient.
Seems thousands and thousands of years since Papa remembered that was my favorite hymn. Oh, I wish I'd been here a long time. I don't like being new here. How do you do, Mr. Simpson?
How do you do,
Mother Gibbs, George and I have made that farm into just the best place you ever saw. We thought of you all the time. We wanted you to know that the new barn, the great long cement drinking fountain, it works great for the stock. We bought that out of the money you left us.
Did I?
Don't you remember, Mother Gibbs, the legacy you left us? Why, it was over $350.
Yes. Yes, Emily.
Well, there's a patent device on the drinking fountain so that it never overflows, Mother Gibbs, and it never sinks below a certain mark that they have there. It's fine. It won't be the same to George without me, but it's a lovely farm. A lot of people don't understand, do they?
No, dear. Not very much.
They're sort of shut up in little boxes, aren't they? I feel as though I knew them last 1,000 years ago. My boy is spending the day at Mrs. Carter's. Oh, Mr. Carter, my little boy is spending the day at your house.
Is he?
Yes, he loves it there. Mother Gibbs, we have a Ford too. Never gives any trouble. I don't drive though, Mother Gibbs. When does this feeling go away? Of being one of them? How long does it?
Shh, dear. Just rest yourself.
I know. Look, they're finished. They're going. Oh, look, Father Gibbs is bringing some of my flowers to you. He looks just like George, doesn't he? Oh, Mother Gibbs, I never realized before how troubled and how in the dark live people are. Look at him, I loved him so. That's all they are, troubled. But Mother Gibbs, one can go back. One can go back there. Into living, I feel it, I know it. Why, just then for a moment I was thinking about the farm, and for a minute I was there and my baby was on my lap.
Of course you can.
I can go back there and live all those days over again. Why not?
All I can say is, Emily, don't.
But it's true, isn't it? I can go and live back there again.
Yes, some have tried, but they soon come back here.
Don't do it, Emily.
Emily, don't. It's not what you think it'd be.
But I won't live over a sad day. I'll choose a happy one. I'll choose the day I first knew that I loved George. Why should that be painful?
You not only live it, but you watch yourself living it.
Yes.
And as you watch it, you see the thing that they down there never know. You see the future. You know what's going to happen afterwards.
Was that painful? I don't.
That's not the only reason why you shouldn't do it, Emily. When you've been here longer, you'll see that our life here is to forget all that and think only of what's ahead and be ready for what's ahead. When you've been here longer, you'll understand.
But, Mother Gibbs, how can I ever forget that life is all I've known and it's all I've ever had?
Emily, it isn't why. Really, it isn't.
But it's a thing I must know for myself. I'll choose a happy day, anyway.
No! At least choose an unimportant day. Choose the least important day in your life. It will be important enough.
And it can't be since I was married or since the baby was born. I can choose a birthday at least, can't I? I choose my 12th birthday.
All right. February 11th, 1899, Tuesday. Do you want any special time of day?
I want the whole day.
We'll begin at dawn. You remember it had been snowing for several days, but it had stopped the night before. They'd begun clearing the roads. The sun's coming up.
There's Main Street, and why, that's Mr. Morgan's drugstore, before he changed it. And there's the livery stable.
Yes, since 1899. This is 14 years ago.
And that's the town I knew as a little girl. And look, there's the old white fence that used to be around our house, and I've forgotten that. I love it so. Are they inside?
Yes, your mother will be coming downstairs in a minute to make breakfast.
Will she?
And you remember your father had been away for several days. He comes back on the early morning train.
No, I don't.
Oh, he'd been back to his college to make a speech in Western New York with Clinton.
Look, there's Howard Newsom, and there's our policeman, but he's dead. He died.
Whoa, whoa, Betsy. Morning, Bill.
Morning, Howard.
You're up early.
Been a Rasputin party. Darn near froze to death down by Polish town there. Got drunk and lay on the snow drifts. Thought he was in bed when I shook him.
Why, there's Joe Crowell.
Good morning, Mr. Warren. Good morning, Howie.
Children, Wally, Emily, time to get up.
Mama, I'm here. Oh, how young Mama looks. I didn't know Mama was ever that young.
You can come and dress by the kitchen fire if you like, but hurry. Good morning, Mr. Newsom. It's cold.
10 below by my bar, just a bit.
Think of it. Keep yourself wrapped up.
Mama, I can't find my blue hair ribbons anywhere.
Just open your eyes, dear, that's all, and lay it out for you special on your dresser there. If it were snaky bite you.
Yes, yes.
Well, good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Mr. Webb. You're up early.
Yes, just been back to my old college in New York State. Been any trouble here?
Well, I was called up this morning to rescue a Polish fella. Darn near froze to death he was.
We must get that in the paper.
Come on, Blanche.
Papa.
Good morning, Mother.
How'd it go, Charles?
Oh, fine, I guess. I told him a few things. Everything all right here?
Yes, can't think of anything that's happened special. Then quite cold. Howie Newsom says it's 10 below over to his barn.
Yes, well, it's colder than that in Hamilton College. Students' ears are falling off. It ain't Christian. Hey, Brad,
No, I noticed. Coffee's ready when you want it. Oh, Charles, it's Emily's birthday. Did you remember to get her something?
Oh, yes, I've got something here. Where's my girl? Where's my birthday girl?
Don't interrupt her now, Charles. You can see her breakfast. She's slow enough as it is. Hurry up, children. It's 7 o'clock. Now I don't want to call you again.
I can't bear it. They're so young and beautiful. Why do they ever have to get old? Mama, I'm here. I'm grown up. I love you all, everything, and I can't look at everything hard enough. Good morning, Mama.
Well, now, dear, very happy birthday to my girl and many happy returns. There's some surprises waiting for you on the kitchen table.
Oh, Mama, you shouldn't have. I can't.
Oh, but birthday or no birthday, I want you to eat your breakfast good and slow. I want you to grow up and be a good, strong girl. Oh, that and the blue papers from your Aunt Carrie, I can bet you can reckon. And yes, who brought the postcard album? I found it on the doorstep when I brought in the milk. George Gibbs. Must have come over in the cold pretty early. Right nice of him.
George, I've forgotten about that.
Chew that bacon good and slow. It'll help keep you warm on a cold day.
Oh, Mama, just look at me 1 minute as though you really saw me. Mama, 14 years have gone by. I'm dead. Your grandmother. Mama, I married George Gibbs. Wally's dead too. Mama, his appendix burst on a camping trip to North Conway. We felt just terrible about it, don't you remember? But just for a moment now, we're all together. Mama, just for a moment, we're happy. Let's look at one another.
Oh, well, that in the yellow paper is something I found in the attic among your grandmother's things. You're old enough to wear it now. I thought you'd like it.
This is from you. Why, Mama, it's just lovely and it's just what I wanted. It's beautiful.
Well, I hope you like it. I hunted all over. Your Aunt Nora couldn't find one in Concord, so I had to send all the way to Boston. Oh, Polly has something for you too. He made that manual training class. He's very proud of it. Be sure you make a big fuss about it. Your father has a surprise for you too. Don't know what it is myself. Here he comes.
Where's my girl? Where is my birthday girl?
I can't go on. It goes so fast. We don't have time to look at one another. I didn't realize. So all that was going on and we never noticed. Take me back up the hill to my grave, but first wait, one more look. Goodbye. Goodbye, world. Goodbye, Grover's Corners. Mama and Papa, goodbye to clocks ticking and Mama's sunflowers. And food and coffee and new iron dresses
every minute?
No. The saints and the poets maybe. They do some.
I'm ready to go back.
Were you happy?
No, I should have listened to you. It's all human beings are, just blind people.
Look, it's clearing up. The stars are coming out.
Oh, Mr. Stimson, I should have listened to them.
Well, yes, now you know. Now you know. That's what it was to be alive, to move out in a cloud of ignorance, to go up and down, trample on the fields of those about you, stand within face time, as I never remember. You always begin to mercy from some sort of body. Or remember, now you that's the happy existence you want to go. Ignorance and blindness.
Simon Simpson, that ain't the whole truth and you know it. Emily, look at that star. I forget its name.
My boy Joel was a sailor. He knew them all. He'd sit on the porch evenings and tell them all by name. Yes, sir, wonderful. A star is mighty good company.
Yes, tis.
Oh, Mother Gibbs, it's George.
Here.
Mother Gibbs, it's George.
Just rest yourself.
And my boy Joel, who knew the stars, he used to say it took millions of years for that speck of light to grip the earth. Don't seem like a body could believe it, but that's what he used to say. Millions of years.
Goodness, that ain't no way to behave.
He ought to be home by now.
Mother Gibbs,
Yes, Emily?
they don't understand, do they?
No, dear. They don't understand.
Most everybody's asleep in Grover's Corners. There are just a few lights on. Shorty Hawkins down at the depot has just watched the Albany train go by. And at the livery stable, somebody's sitting up late and talking. Yeah, it's clearing up. There are the stars doing their old crisscross journeys in the sky. Scholars haven't settled the matter yet, but they seem to think there are no living beings up there. Just chalk and fire. Only this one is straining away all the time to make something of itself, and the strain's got so bad that every 16 hours somebody lies down and gets a rest. 11 o'clock in Grover's Corners. You get a good rest too. Good night.
Thank you everyone for coming.
bring me in as a consultant. I can't believe you didn't bring me in as a consultant.